We have somebody to come on and talk about FedNow. What is the new government's idea of possibly getting rid of the dollar to the digital dollar, and what FedNow really means and what you can do to protect your future? A lot of people don't understand FedNow. We talk about it all the time, and we're actually hopefully going to be able to bring on the spokesperson for American Alternative Assets, who is one of our sponsors, that talks about why it's important for you to diversify and to be able to opt out of this crazy plan that Biden and the Democrats are trying to pull now with FedNow. We're trying to get a hold of him and get him on. And okay, we got him. Cool. So I don't want to waste a lot of time, because then we're going to go into the Jason Aldean situation and what is the concept of racism and where are we now. But first, I've done so many spaces. I've talked on Twitter about this. We have American Alternative Assets as one of our great sponsors, and they've actually got a pamphlet or a booklet for you to go through and learn how to diversify so that you can opt out of this. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm going to give you to the spokesperson of American Alternative Assets, Michael Christian. Welcome to I'm Fired Up. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. You're looking good, man. That's a fine suit you got there. I like it. I'm sorry, it's too hot in South Carolina for a suit for me right now, or I would be with you.
Good. I went to school.
So please tell us about FedNow. This is something that we've really put out there. We've been running the sponsorship here at Red Voice Media, and a lot of people hit me up when I do spaces on Twitter and in my DMs and saying, "Chad, I don't understand FedNow. I don't understand what I need to diversify. What's coming? I don't get it." And thank you so much for joining us today. And if you could go into that and talk about American Alternative Assets, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm more directed towards central bank digital currency, CBDC as they're called, because when Biden got elected, one of the first things he did was sign an executive order. And to start, the Federal Reserve out of Boston teamed up with MIT, and they did what's known as the white papers for this digital dollar to see the feasibility, to see if it can actually work. And soon after, the Federal Reserve out of New York teamed up with Wells Fargo, Citibank, and a bunch of other big banks to see how this would roll out, and they test piloted it. So right away, an article came out from CoinDesk titled "Bank of America said CBDCs are the future of money and payments," saying that central bank digital currencies have the potential to revolutionize global financial systems. And then Fox Business News followed it up with saying that the CBDCs are coming whether countries are ready or not, that 114 countries are exploring digital currencies, and their collective economies represent more than 95% of the world's GDP. So what happens is people are realizing this could be a massive devaluation of their money. You think back at Germany post-World War II, when they switched from the Deutschmark to the Deutschmark, they lost 90%, 90, of the value of their paper overnight, except those who bought gold. So we have such debt right now, we can't afford to pay the interest, let alone the principal. They're digging a hole more and more, and they have to print more and more paper. So it's an opportune time to go, when you're switching to the digital dollar, and they could sweep this debt under the rug and make our money worth less and less, to actually buy gold. Because all the banks right here and around the world are buying gold at the fastest pace they have ever. Right. And the reason is that it's not because it's shiny. It's because it's a store of wealth. It's been real money for 6,000 years. You open up the Bible, it's mentioned 420 times, and it's real money. And countries around the world are looking to switch over to a gold-backed currency.
Well, let me ask you this, because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
But what we do here at American Alternative Assets is help people move into physical gold and silver rather than holding paper dollars, which are becoming worth less and less.
One of the things that I get asked all the time, and I was in an interview, and they said, okay, so if the dollar collapses and it's not worth anything anymore, how am I going to go buy groceries in the store with gold? But you just kind of said that in your open, that it's a place to park your wealth because it doesn't devalue, instead of having a piece of paper that actually means nothing to anybody. So is that correct in the idea of gold and silver IRAs?
Oh, absolutely. You hold gold, you buy gold with money you don't want to lose. And it's liquid. You could sell gold anytime you want. It'll revalue to the next currency, whatever that might be. And with our company, we don't sell anyone's information. We don't need it. We don't issue a tax form when we sell it to you. If you buy it, if we buy it back, you sell it back to us to liquidate. We don't need the Social Security number. And if you pass it on to your heirs, attorneys don't need to touch it. It's transferable wealth, and it's the most private wealth you can have. Some people think of it as a financial Second Amendment.
Right. No, and that's something that and here's something that's asked of me all the time also, and I think it's super important because there's people that are combat driven and understand this fight we're in, like myself, more war strategy, what we need to do, but people don't think about the economy or the economic side of it, and this is what gold and silver really does, is it protects your legacy, your future, your children's future, and by being able to not just wake up one day, like you said, which is beyond my thought process. We saw it happen in Venezuela, actually, where they woke up one day and their dollar was worth nothing. And everybody was instantly, simultaneously poor, unless they opted out and got into gold and silver, which you're right, has not devalued in 6,000 years. So is this the breaking point? Is Fed now where, because we've been talking about it for a very long time, is this a time right now where, I'm not big on penny the sky is falling and scaring people, but it seems like to me that this is a right now thing. You better get involved.
Well, we have the highest inflation we've had since the 1970s. And Milton Friedman, who used to run the Fed, said that inflation was taxation without legislation. So there's an argument that this was created. That the QE1, quantitative easing, the banks stepped in and they bought non-performing assets in the banking system. So they buy them at face value, problem solved. Banks have strong balance sheet. Then you have QE2, which the banks basically print money out of thin air and they push it into the economy. And they do this by buying assets like property from non-bank sectors, and the money is deposited into the seller's bank accounts. So out of the clear blue in 2020, the Federal Reserve adopted QE2. And it was recommended for a shrinking economy, for deflation. But the problem was the economy wasn't shrinking. So they bought up assets from non-banks, forcing to create credit. And all this printing of money is a recipe for inflation. It's not a mistake. So there's an argument that they created this inflation. And there's proof. If you want to go and dig under behind the black curtain, there was a conference. There was a conference in August 2019 in Jackson Hole, Mississippi. Jackson Hole. Central bankers invited BlackRock, the biggest asset manager, and they made a proposal. BlackRock made a proposal saying there'll be another crisis. Well, we had one. We had COVID. And this time we should create inflation, they said. Now, why would they do this? To move the economies into the digital system. Okay, so in 2020, March of 2020, the Fed basically hired BlackRock to buy assets. So there's an argument that they orchestrated this inflation to cover up the changes in the banking system to move us from a petrodollar onto a digital dollar to absorb all this massive debt that they created. Because think of it, if you and I ran our business with all this kind of debt, we'd be on the street or, we'd be in jail. And right. If you look back in the 1970s, they had the same inflation. And they moved us off a gold-backed dollar onto the petrodollar. So what did? They created this inflation by printing money, get us out of this enormous debt that they created to move us to a new digital currency. And they'll have the power with this currency to control everything.
This is actually and I'm big on, and I want to say this because Red Voice Media is very specific about who we allow to come on as a sponsor, because we do believe that we are the front lines. This is an actionable network. All of its hosts are actually in the game and preach the truth. And with American Alternative Assets, and I've had a couple of my listeners contact me that have actually got your wealth guide and said how easy it actually was, because it was very confusing. Just as we talk about, a lot of people are confused because for some reason in our schools we don't teach economics anymore, and all of a sudden people are scared about what they've built and it actually being gone. Again, we saw it in Venezuela. It can happen. And I had a couple of my listeners reach out to me and said how easy it was and how wonderful your staff was in order to be able to move their stuff to gold and silver. So first off, thank you, because I'm very protective of my listeners, as is the rest of this network. network, and I'm glad you're a partner with us on this network. My biggest question to you now is that the Fed announced yesterday that they are going to raise the interest rate another 1/4 percentage point. But we just had all of this legislation saying that they're trying to stop inflation. So is it and I like to call people out, not one of my sponsors per se, but it's not that I wouldn't. But the idea that we have 25% or we have a 1/4 raise in the interest rate, they started Fed Now July 1st, implemented it last Friday. This is really happening. This is really, really happening. And there really is no other way to get out from underneath it than to contact American Alternative Assets. And there isn't another weapon out there. And this is a weapon because you are fighting back against what the government has already done. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not going to, all I can just tell you is we can help you protect your assets because we have the highest inflation in 50 years. They printed so many dollars that they practically doubled the money supply, which causes inflation to play down this debt. And the next thing to go is the stock market because, you know, a year ago, Warren Buffett wrote a letter to his shareholders saying, if you stay in the market, prepare to lose at least 50% of your assets. That's a big statement. Yeah, we have Harry Dent saying you may lose 85% of your assets. Benjamin Fulford, who used to be the chief editor of Forbes magazine, saying the common consensus is when it's all said and done is people are going to lose 85 to 90% of their money in the market. So the raising of the interest rates are going to trigger, you know, potentially trigger losses in the market. The price to earnings ratio is way out of whack because they kept the interest rates artificially low for a long time, practically zero. So corporate executives, it's very simple. Corporate executives get paid based on the price of their stock. So they were borrowing money for free, buying their own stock for free. And the price of their stock went up 300% or so, but the value only went up 25%. And that's pretty much a basic definition of a bubble. When that bubble breaks, according to Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, people in his generation with 401ks, you know, they're going to be 101ks, and they're going to take a decade to come back. The great thing about what we do at American Alternative Assets is we can help you not only put, exchange cash, convert cash into metals, gold and silver, but you can roll over an IRA or a 401k or any kind of a retirement account without any tax consequences or penalties into a self-directed IRA that can now hold physical gold and silver. And it's an inverse asset. So historically, when the market goes down, gold goes up. It soared. In 2008, when people lost on average 40% and took 7 years to rebound, gold went up over 2 times in the next 2.5 years, and silver went up almost 500%. Well, in the last 23 years, gold has beat the stock market by 300%.
Wow.
Anyway. Yeah. So Wall Street, the media, they don't need to tout gold because gold is real money.
It is. We do something on this show specific on I'm Fired Up, and I like to give my guests a 1-minute window to look at America and tell them exactly what's within their profession and why this is necessary. So please go to AmericanAlternativeAssets.com and please get your wealth guide so that you can diversify and protect yourself from this particular situation. And with that, Michael Christian, I would like to give you an opportunity to talk to America directly and tell them what they need to do to protect themselves from what's coming, if you will.
I'll put it to you very simply. 100 years ago, one of these could buy an ounce of gold. This is in a plastic wrapper, so you don't put your fingerprints on it. An ounce of gold cost this 100 years ago. Today, an ounce of gold, you need 102 of these or so. So this 1 ounce gold coin 100 years ago could essentially buy a man a tailor-made suit and a nice pair of shoes. And today, an ounce of gold can essentially buy a man a tailor-made suit and a nice pair of shoes. So do you want to have your wealth in dollars, which is losing value, or gold, which keeps value? It's that simple.
Mr. Michael Christian, thank you so much. And thank you for what you guys do at American Alternative Assets. You know, I know it's a business, but at the same time, I talk to my listeners that have already contacted y'all, and it's nice to know there's something there to do, because we're feeling a lot of pressure of what's going on in our geopolitical world and the world around us. And it's nice to have a sponsor like you with Red Voice Media to continue to go out there and help the people, because what you just showed us right there is as cathartic as you can be, and it says it all. Thank you so much for joining us on I'm Fired Up, and thank you for being a part of Red Voice Media. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a great day today. Ladies and gentlemen, go to American Alternative Assets. This is... Look, you know I don't sell a lot of T-shirts. I don't sell a lot of stuff. I'm all about help. I'm all about the fix. And what we're dealing with right now, he just explained it in simplest terms. I'm actually going to see if my producer will cut that. I'm going to just share that so that you can see what it's worth and what this means. Because I know a lot of you are very scared about your assets that you currently have earned throughout your life and what you want to protect for your kids.
Attention Americans, breaking news. Biden's dangerous plan for a digital dollar is underway. Don't be fooled. It won't benefit you. Take action now. The Federal Reserve phased deployment of FedNow began on July 1st, 2023. Be prepared. This may catch many off guard. Your hard-earned assets are in jeopardy. But there's a simple legal tax loophole to opt out of the digital dollar. Reach out to American Alternative Assets for a free wealth protection guide and discover how to safeguard your wealth with gold and silver IRAs against a failing dollar and volatile markets. Visit protectfrombiden.com. This invaluable guide provides precise steps to transfer your IRA or 401k into precious metals without any tax consequences. Be smart. Don't let Biden force you into using the government's new digital dollar. Visit protectfrombiden.com to get your free guide and get started. Again, that's protectfrombiden.com.